on the road at Husker Harvest Days, spending a few moments now talking with Nebraska Bankers. And joining us now is Jerry Catlett, who is with the Bruning State Bank and is the incoming chairman of the Nebraska Bankers. And Jerry, also a lot of your focus is on agriculture. When we talk about Nebraska and lending, agriculture is a huge part of that.
Yeah, the state's #1 industry, as most people are walking around the building here today and at the show would understand, and that's why they're here. Very, very important, critical for the success of our state.
All right, so you're talking with folks over these days at Husker Harvest Days. You've got some reasons for people to come in. Of course, people that here love to come and get that fresh popcorn. But are there some concerns? Are there some things you're hearing from folks as we look at this economy and the commodity prices the way they are? I would think that, farmers are the most optimistic group in the world, but right now there's some challenges ahead.
Oh, definitely. And we've seen that already in some of the things that have gone on with some of our summer inspections, and not just for our bank, but as industry-wide, some of the other bankers that are here working our booth. We've talked about that already. We're seeing people that are going to be a little bit short on their cash flow this year. Part of it has to do with pricing. There wasn't as much probably forward contracting as what we've seen in the past, or price protection. And of course, the 2008 through 2012 had such good years. It was not too hard to make money in farming, but now we don't have those times again. Not everyone sold $7 corn, and not everybody's going to sell $3.50 corn either. But somewhere in between, we've got the people got to do some management, and that's what we're trying to get out and see our producers to talk about is how you're doing and what your management is. What have you done for price protection?
Right. So here we are in the fall, and this is probably one of the best opportunities right before harvest gets really in full swing to keep, if you're not having that good conversation with your lender or that possible provider for those loans, to at least kind of let them know what's going on, the situation, and where you're at.
Yeah, and going back, doing this long enough, is communication, just like it is in anything, is so important. But I think now more than ever is if you think you're going to have a bad year, good time to get in and see that lender, develop. If you don't have a relationship, good time to solidify it. We like to hear from people if there's going to be an issue. There's a lot of things we can do now before things happen. We talk about restructuring. We don't like to use the word carryover debt, but there's going to be some of that this year. How do we do that? And how are we going to address that? We're not out there to bury people in debt either. That's not our job, but we've got to make sure that if we have to make some adjustments, fiduciarily, it's going to work for the producer and for the bank. So,
is that one of the things that's changed? You brought up risk management a couple times down in our conversation. Is that maybe in your role and other ag lenders' role is to really talk with their customers and maybe do a different or a more thorough plan when it comes to farm management maybe than before?
Yeah, and I think that as farms have gotten bigger, not that we all like that, but just that's the reality, it seems like, what's happening with our global market. But I think it's become even more important that people understand how important cash flow has always been, and it'll even get more important again as we go through this kind of change in cycle that seems like we're going through. And it goes back to and things that we've talked about, and at least around our loan table, is we've seen some good run-up in balance sheets and values of land, but equity doesn't repay. Equity doesn't provide cash flow. And yes, people have plenty of collateral, but that doesn't always mean just because you have the collateral, loaning the money is a good decision. We may not in the long term be doing the best thing for you. So you've got to figure out how to make that cash flow work.
I'm going to have to ask about what everybody else continues to bring up. With these lower commodity prices, the debt loads are rising, but really we're not in the same scenario where we were 30 years ago.
That's when I started in banking, so I would have to tell you I don't think so. There are some, and I don't want to use the word younger, but first generation, second generation farmers that have a little bit more concentration of debt than some of the guys that have been around doing it a long time. So I think there's going to be some stress in some certain areas. Folks that have been paying some of these tremendously high cash rents, that I think is going to have some repercussions going forward if they continue to try to do that. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago of our convention with Dr. David Cole in and talked to our ag bankers, and we talked about one of the things that families need to do, and one was check your family livings, where you on machinery and equipment expenses, and that was two of the top things. But the third is maybe you need to go see your landlord and talk about what you're paying in cash rent. That might be a pretty big adjustment going for next year. Hard conversation to have, but a necessary one, kind of like having that talk with your banker.
Right.
How's that?
Well, that's true. We could probably spend the rest of the afternoon talking with your landlords, but that's maybe for another time.
That's right.
Well, Jerry, again, congratulations on as you move up the steps. We look forward to continuing to hear good things about the Nebraska Bankers.
Good to see you again, and thank you very much, Ken.
Absolutely. Jerry Catlett with the Bruning State Bank, also was the incoming chairman of the Nebraska Bankers Association. On the road at Husker Harvest Days for Ag View, I'm Ken Rogers.